Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Ramosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello there, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and Television. And tonight, I am your fading Hollywood star, Scott Thurlow, here with my stunt double best friend, Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Peace.
And my cult leader, outlier, Stephen Omosi.
Don't be a pig.
Mm-hmm. And we are discussing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's ninth film, I believe. And we are going to review that, and I believe Ian has a logline prepared for us.
Cliff Cassidy and the Charlie Manson kids.
Yep, exactly. And go on, sir, with the plot of this film.
Okay, so this is a movie about, as you alluded to in your introduction, an aging Western star who is now relegated to playing the villain in television shows and offered spaghetti westerns instead of the high horse he used to be on.
Yep.
He also has his best friend and stunt double, Cliff, and they get into shenanigans in old school Hollywood and line.
Nice. Yeah, I mean it's Tarantino's salute to like the dying, like the transitional period from the late 60s Hollywood period into like the new 70s era. Sure.
And it definitely has a vibe of a Western throughout it.
Yep.
Even though it takes place in 1969. And they live next door to Sharon Tate and
Polanski.
Polanski. And Rick, who is the actor, hopes to one day befriend them so that he can get in a Polanski movie. And, Charles Manson is tertiarily involved in this.
There for a second.
Yeah.
Yep.
And his family, Cliff kind of meets with a couple of the crew, and they go to do the Sharon Tate murders, except Rick appears a little bit drunk. Actually, very drunk.
Yeah, and this reality, and irate Rick yells at the hippies.
And diverts them from the Sharon Tate murders to go kill him. But Cliff turns out to be a Bruce Lee bashing badass.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And wins the day with ultraviolence.
It's pretty good.
Yep. I mean,
summary of what happens in the movie.
It's basically a story of Leo as Rick and Brad Pitt as his stuntman, stuntman best friend as Clint. And yeah, like they happen to live next door to the Sharon Tate household, to Polanski and Tate, and it's just like, as you said, it's them like Rick trying to like save his career in Hollywood, and it just follows around from that. So given all of that, it's a long film. Again, Tarantino like is not known for making short films, I guess we'll say. So it's I believe Steve was like 241 or something in running length.
Yeah, 241.
But I would say it doesn't feel that long, and I was quite invested throughout. Now, possibly the point I'm going to take off a point. I'm probably going to give it a 2 to plot, and the reason I'm going to do that might come out in other questions we'll discuss. But I think it was very strong. I was very invested throughout. I wasn't bored. I don't think there was any like wasted time or wasted scenes or anything like that. But Ian made a point precast that I think we'll expand upon.
Do you mind if I go into that now?
Yeah, jumping into it now. But I'm saying, before you go on, I'm looking at a 2. So
I am as well. And for this particular reason is I absolutely adored 95% of this film. Mm-hmm. I thought it was fantastic. I think that the performances were outstanding, captured exactly of this man. There's actually a lot of desperation in here, and I'll go into themes, but like a fading star wanting to recapture his
trying
glory.
To desperately stay relevant. Yeah,
and his best friend, who is basically his fate is tied with this actor, and them trying to like build their lives. It's brilliant. It's brilliantly acted, and then it takes what I consider a left turn, and I felt it very jarring. And now I'm actually going to quote Chris here. Chris was supposed to be on this, but he hated this movie, and actually said something that he felt this really disrespected Sharon Tate
the memory
in
of
this, and the memory of that. And he really didn't. He was afraid that this would be the ending of them stopping, like basically the Inglourious Basterds ending, where they they change history to stopping a horrific event. But I don't know. It didn't for me feel an earned ending.
That is well put. Yeah,
and it just goes into ultra violence where I don't necessarily, where it was very subdued for most of the film. It's, to me, compared to another, it's very Jackie Brownish until it became Inglourious Basterds. And that style of ending doesn't, to me, fit well, so I'm going to deduct a point for that.
It wasn't a good match, yeah. Good, Steve-O.
Yeah, I think that that's well put. I didn't dislike the ending as much as, and we actually, so we normally don't talk as much at length about films before we review them as we did this one, but I think there was a lot to talk about in this movie, and a lot good, but certainly the ending you disliked more than and I think I can speak for Scott in the same way. Like, you disliked it more than we did, but I definitely see your point, and I think that there is something to be said for, like, there was a point in this movie where I thought that Tarantino was going to go
a certain
very very differently than a Tarantino movie, and I thought perhaps there would be no actual deaths. I thought that all the deaths in the movie would be in the TV shows and the films that they were showing, and I thought that would be an interesting take for Tarantino, like a new way to go. And then the end of the movie does get very violent, as everyone has come to expect from a Tarantino film. And you're right, it did kind of feel, maybe I will say unearned, right? Like, it did kind of feel unearned. And not that it didn't do the scenes well, not that this movie didn't do the scenes well, but like it didn't feel like that was the natural ending to this film per se.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think that Tarantino is usually better at giving you the ending that you don't necessarily expect, but you always feel
or the closure that makes sense.
Good closure for the movie, and I don't know if this movie did that perfectly. Not to say that I didn't like it. I like this film quite a bit, but there is that like little, kind of niggling idea in the back of my head that the ending of this could have been better somehow.
Well, here's one of the things is, narratively, it actually makes sense because they are establishing the Western here. You have Cliff as he never wears the white hat, but he usually wears light clothing. You have the Charles Manson cult members, especially Tex, who is the main male antagonist. He wears a black hat. All those kind of hints to the Western. However, it so narratively makes sense that Cliff would face off with him at the end.
Yeah.
But emotionally, the emotional ending of it, I didn't think fit particularly well to it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like, so again, like as you alluded to, we discussed it a bit more at length than we might normally do. But I agree. Like, that's why I'm taking a point off here for plot. That while, like you said, 95% of the movie was fantastic for sure, and we'll discuss the lot of questions in a second, like why is the case. But yeah, the ending, like, while I don't think I had as much of a problem with it as perhaps you personally did, but and you speaking through Chris's point, I think that is the case. So that is why I'm also going to take a point off here. Give it a very strong 2, but still a 2.
Yeah, it is definitely the showdown at like the OK Corral at the end of this, right? Like it's that.
But it seemed
like we meet at high noon or whatever type of thing.
But it did seem a little out of place, I guess.
It did. What I will say, in terms of the good of it, is it did the that pause before, like the calm before the storm, very well. Yes. Where like you see the dog like sit up, and like you can almost hear the like na 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 na.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that part, but like it is like kind of out of left field. Like it should have been probably either set up a little bit better, or the actual scene should have been done a little bit differently, so it felt more in tune with what the movie was.
Later this month, we're going to be doing a narrative episode about proportionality. And when you see Nazis get slaughtered, The worst things can happen to the Nazis that you can imagine, because in general, on a society, we agree that they're the worst. And they are. And so, like, we want to see them burn alive. I feel actually Sadie, I felt bad for her, the amount of punishment she went through. In that, yeah, she's a murderous cult member, but she was hit in the face with a can of dog food, which broke her nose, her teeth, her mouth. She was mauled by a dog. She ran outside and then got hit
burned
by
alive.
It actually felt mean.
Like excessive.
To me, while watching it, I'm like she deserves. Her death is fine. The extent of her death was actually
the torturous
the details of it. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, again, while it didn't bother me as much, I do agree that, like, I think that's where we take off a point. Maybe, like, slightly, but still, nevertheless, it garners a 2, a very strong 2. But for that reason, I think we're giving 2s 2 plots.
Same. And one more small point I want to make is, like, I think it's really interesting that they frame them, these 3 murderers, as hippies, right? Like, and that's kind of baked into the script of this plot, is like, they are framed as hippies. They're not framed as, like, Charles Manson's, like, hit squad. You know, they're framed as, oh, what are you fucking hippies doing out here? And, like, it's a really weird way that is done. And perhaps we'll talk about a little bit more about that later. But, like,
to build up that, like, assuming that Nazis are bad, in this is kind of assume that hippies are
right,
bad.
and like that's
like,
kind of
kind
of the problem that I had with it. Like, I don't think that Tarantino was specifically trying to say that hippies are bad like Nazis are, but, like, I think it almost came off that way. And,
exactly.
Like, you know, that was a small issue that I had, or an issue that I had with it.
Yeah, I think there's enough to dock at a point there, but so that's 2s all around.
Yep.
And Steve-O, carry on with themes.
So there's this really big theme going throughout of, like, getting older in a world where you have to be young to be successful. It happens with Leo. He's just losing roles, and, like, now he's playing quote unquote the heavy in a bunch of movies so that these young stars can say that they beat up somebody famous, basically.
Yeah.
You have Brad Pitt's character,
Clint Booth.
So Cliff Booth.
Oh, sorry, yes.
So Cliff, and Leo's character is Rick Dalton. But yeah, you have Cliff, who is basically just a washed up stuntman at this point, who he's still got it, obviously, but he's getting older all the time, and, like, stuntman, as a stuntman,
his fortunes are tied to Leo's character.
He backed the wrong horse in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, you know, there's talk about, like, the missed opportunities a lot with Leo and his career. Like, there's a couple conversations about that. And he has all these, like, great conversations that talk about, like, show his, like, heavy emotions about becoming older, and, like, you know,
and coming to that realization
in this, you know, being in this industry, if you aren't a great, like, one of the greats, like, in terms of actors, like, your fortune is tied to your looks and and what you can do. And I think that, like, this movie treads the line a lot of, like, whether or not Rick Dalton is a great actor. Because, like, there's a lot of points where he fails, and then you see his, like, great successes as well, which is really interesting. Like, it's not all, like, oh, this is the end of my career. It's more like him thinking, oh, it's the end of my career, because he's very self-conscious about his own acting and stuff like that. But you see his successes as well. Same thing with Cliff, to a certain extent, is, like, you see him kind of succeed as a person outside of his career.
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
You know, he kind of stands up for what he believes in, and, like, goes and, like, his friend George, who he used to work with, he goes and, like, just stands up for him, make sure he's okay, even though he really wasn't necessarily, but, like, make sure that he's not dead. Look, basically,
he's a blind man getting, like, pounced on by hippie girls. End years of his life.
He's doing all right for himself.
So they can live at his...
There's worse endings.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I think that it's a really interesting line that this movie treads in terms of the themes and like which side of the themes you fall on at any given moment. And I think that's the most interesting thing about it is like at any point in your day, right, as like somebody like Rick Dalton or even Cliff Booth, or even if you want to talk about Sharon Tate, like there's moments where you're up on yourself and there's moments where you're down on yourself, and like you're still this person who, even more so than perhaps, you know, quote normal people, you have these like really highs and really lows because of the nature of the business that you're in. And I think that's really, I think that's an interesting theme. I'm sure you guys will talk about other stuff. But.
Yeah, man. So like, I'll talk about a couple of things. Like the fickleness of Hollywood certainly is there. Like, right? Like, and again, like the insecurities, like the perception of the public view versus like who the actual people are. Like as you mentioned, Sharon Tate like goes to see the film that she's in and like hopes that people like her in it, and like that seems to be the case. And like, you know, again, Rick doubting himself and like realizing that he's no longer like the big shot, like number one, and then now he's been relegated to playing these kind of roles to keep him, you know, to keep himself afloat, and then therefore Cliff's fate is tied to him, or like his livelihood, also that, right? But of course, like, I'm sorry if I'm stealing this from you, E. Like, it's a western, like a meta western in a sense, right? So like, you guys mentioned like it has the tropes of that, like the standoff, like you said, like Tex wearing the black hat and Cliff dressed and Brad Pitt dressed in like lighter clothes and like heroically fighting him off and so forth, right? So it's like, it's almost like Tarantino's like love letter, and like he was unabashedly like saying about this when his film was coming out, like when he was making it, like, yeah, it's my love letter to the death of the golden age of Hollywood,
right,
more or less, and like as framed through the story that these two fictional characters who happen to be living next to fictionalized versions of two real people who suffered a horrible tragedy. So like that's all, and it's all very nicely like just woven through the film. Like at no point does the film hit you in the head over it, or like take a breath, like, now here's the fucking theme of the film, right? It's just there as organically as the characters are. So I think it's very, very well done, and I think it nailed it pretty much.
Yeah.
So I'm going to mention something that's probably not related to themes, which should have mentioned in plot, but there's two scenes that I want to discuss, which is kind of wrapped in. So let me continue. One scene is when Cliff is... You're introduced to Cliff through the lens as a partner to Rick.
Yeah.
And the high life that he lives, even though it's fading. And then you see Cliff go back to his little mobile home.
His shitty trailer and stuff,
and eating Kraft mac and cheese out of a pot, which I did 2 days ago. So I'm like, thank you for showing the low point of this guy's life. But as my reality. But also, when Rick needs the lines and he hates himself in his trailer and is yelling at himself. So Cliff actually, for all of the low points monetarily that he has, he's a stronger character.
He's more like secure in himself, or confident, if you will.
Where you see the actors as these neurotic messes, who are like, either whether it's true Sharon Tate, as you mentioned, or Rick. It's interesting, and I was also screaming at myself in my apartment, so I'm a little bit both a Rick and Cliff fan.
Sure, but it spoke to you, right? It spoke to you, and I think the film like made it very clear without being overbearing, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah.
So is that one for you guys on themes?
One's on themes, yeah,
Yep.
I think so.
So it brings me to antagonist, which is an interesting one, I suppose. Like, yes, of course, on the surface, it's Charlie Manson's cult and like what he was doing, like his nefarious plan that like sort of collides with the lives of these two fictional characters, Cliff and Rick, right? But like, again, I think it's more than that. It almost like bleeds over from themes in a sense, where again, like realizing your insecurities, like realizing your place, like you're once great, and now like you have to accept your place because the times they are changing, I guess we'll say, right? So like, yes, of course, like the culmination, like the showdown, as one of you mentioned at the end, yeah, but like the big battle, like a la the Western thematic elements, as we mentioned as well, like there. But I think it's like just accepting like who you are and what's happening to you, and trying to make the best of it as you can. Right? So like, I don't know, like it's like both a corporeal in a sense antagonist, and also like an abstract one.
Here's the thing: is it's not a corporeal antagonist.
No?
Charles Manson does not
He's barely
antagonize
there.
them.
I
In
get
fact,
it, but...
honestly, if the whole Sharon Tate, Charles Manson thing didn't exist in this film, I think it would be a better film. Because it's an interesting enough story that they're dealing with without having to put
I see
that
what you
in.
mean, like-
And it really, Rick and Cliff, aside from Cliff going to the ranch, they don't interact with them at all until the very, very end of the film.
Sure.
It is what antagonizes Rick is his fading glory.
His own,
Yeah.
true.
And I think it's very well done. I really appreciate the film for that. In fact, I dislike the film for the addition of Charles Manson in it.
Interesting.
So I here's what I'll say. I guess the addition of Charles, the Manson cult into this, I think added a level of tension that you wouldn't have had without it.
True.
And
I agree.
There was a lot of tension built upon. There's a lot of tension built up in that scene where he goes there, and there's a lot of tension built just upon seeing the cult wandering down the street or whatever, just having them there in the background, and know that this movie is building towards the Sharon Tate murder. That it's building towards what that is supposed to be. Granted, having seen Inglourious Bastards, I assumed that it was going to be some kind of revisionist history. I didn't realize exactly what
in
was going to
such a
happen.
degree, yeah.
But
still.
I figured that it would be different than what happened in real life. But I think that a lot of what Tarantino does really well in his scripts and in his dialogue and just in what's going on in his movies in general is tension building. And I think that he's one of the best tension building screenwriters out working today. And I think that a lot of the tension in this movie and a lot of the reason that you're so dialed in to a lot of the scenes that have nothing to do with Manson is because
it's like
you realize that something is happening in the background, even subconsciously you have something going on in the background.
There is theoretically a countdown going on throughout the entire thing when every date appears.
Right.
So it's getting closer and closer to the date of the Sharon Tate murders.
But that said, I think that both we'll say the corporeal and the incorporeal antagonists of this movie I enjoyed very much, and I am going to give it a 1 for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think I might go on your side a bit, where I think the incorporeal, again, dealing with her fading stardom with your lot in life, given the situation, might be a little bit stronger, but I think both of them still work quite well, and I'm giving it a very strong 1. All right, so E, tell us about the protagonists.
Okay, so I'm going to say Cliff and Rick.
Yep.
First of all, this wouldn't have worked nearly as well without the fantastic performances of Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best things I've ever seen Brad Pitt in. His he personified this character, and I believed all of his motivations, and the fact that he maybe had killed his wife at a point.
Yeah.
I don't know, but because he seems like a genuine guy, every other interaction.
Yeah. It's funny. I hesitate to say I like that it was in there, but I think it added something. Even though it wasn't a big point.
The beauty of it is they show you how he is, and then it's kind of not really a twist, but a surprise that this happened. It happens early on, and then you're seeing him act how he acts to other people. You're like, there's no way this guy I like did this, but he might have. He is impulsive. He is violent when he needs to be, when he feels it's justified. So it's interesting. And Leonardo DiCaprio's performance as this, because it could have been played super tragic and super sappy, but it wasn't. It was played very realistically.
It was the opposite of that, yeah, man.
And you were, at least me watching it, I was with his victories. I felt for him in his failures, and he's kind of an asshole, but
he's a great asshole.
But a well-meaning one in a sense, you know what I mean?
I don't even know if I don't even know he's a selfish actor in a way, and he's still engaging as an individual, as a character. So I have to give it a very strong 1.
You're right. You get a couple moments with Rick where it's oh, this is who you really are. When he comes out, for no reason, yells at the fucking hippies in the car, despite the fact that they were there to kill people.
Yeah.
He didn't know that.
Not for no reason. they were like annoying him because they were in a shitty car and like he was trying to like.
Well,
hang out.
exactly. Like they were in his neighborhood.
It's a very petty reason.
They were in his neighborhood and they were the poors basically, and he was like, "I need to come out here and yell at these motherfuckers
like
and get them the fuck out of here. You don't belong here," type of thing.
But how he's gonna dump Cliff?
And like that whole thing, which he may still have done, like, it was like
No, because I think that it's implied that by getting in the circle with.
I kind of agree. I don't think that he would have, but however, like, you don't really know. You never find out.
He made 2 Jakes work.
Sure.
I think he did. I think Rick Dalton did the 2 Jakes. But like, yeah, it was both of those characters really well done on their own and made so much stronger by their on-screen chemistry between the two of them.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm gonna give this a very strong one. I don't have too much more to say over what you said, but
yeah,
I'm gonna
man,
give it a
I
strong
can't.
one.
Like you guys said it all. Like they had amazing chemistry together. I believe their friendship 100%, and I love their acting in it. Like I love the way that I guess my final thought is Leo being like a good actor within like the framework that he is in the fictional world of it. It's like he's good enough. He's better than everyone else, but he's not great.
Yeah.
Like, and that takes a lot of talent to be an actual actor to portray that.
To be an actual very good actor playing somebody who's a pretty good actor,
sort of like that's
at points is like a bad actor.
yeah, has
right?
to like downplay his own real life skills. Yeah, it was fucking phenomenal, fucking fantastic, and I got to give him all the credit in the world.
I also love how Big Brother protective Cliff is over. It all worked. It's exactly what it needed to be, and
exactly.
It was perfect.
100%, and one's all around strong ones, so that'll bring us to secondary, and that'll be you, Steve-O.
Yeah, it's fucking. There is a million secondary characters.
30
It's
fucking characters,
if not more. Like it's outrageous, but they're all great. You have to mention Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate.
Yep,
I think she's
the most
the
important
number one with a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have like the woman who plays Squeaky Fromm. I don't remember her name right now.
Dakota Fanning.
Oh yeah. God, I can't believe I forgot that. Yeah, Dakota Fanning is Squeaky Fromm.
May I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
Her introduction when
Yes.
you don't get her name, but the rats are like squeaking.
Ian
there.
pointed that out to me,
all-
and I did not put that together.
I was gonna say like that part is all style, but it is brilliant.
Yes.
Like it's fucking fantastic.
I just
And,
want to mention before I forgot it.
even like
good call.
but every part that she's in is great. You have her, you have Roman Polanski as like this he's got like 3 lines in the movie, but he does a good job. Like,
But he has an ascot.
you got
the Austin Powers suit going on.
I'm gonna name like 2 more and then I'll leave it over. But
Okay.
you got like Bruce Lee, the guy who plays Bruce Lee, who's just a great Bruce Lee. And I had one more I wanted to mention. Margaret Qualley, who plays Pussycat, does a really good job in this as well. Like, just as this member of
Sort of like
the Manson cult.
seductive younger cult member.
Yeah, and who just like is kind of electric on screen. Like every time she's on screen, she did a really good job as well. And I'll leave. I could name like 7 other characters at least, but I'll leave it up to you guys.
But yeah, man, you're right. There are so many. Like it's a very broad and a kind of, I want to say eclectic, but maybe not. Like it's many people that Tarantino's worked with previously. So like, as an example, fucking Michael Madsen shows up as a cameo. Like he's like randomly there for like
doesn't even have a name.
Yeah, for like one. He's not even credited with a name. Like one fucking scene. But I'm sorry if I still miss from you. When Rick Dalton Leo is shooting playing the big bad in the new western, that he's like, at least like I'm lucky enough to get this role. He has to co-star along like an 8-year-old girl who is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Like she's like almost smarter than him in a sense, right? Like that was a great, like I felt like they had great chemistry there. But yeah, there's so many, like, of course Margot, like, yeah, fantastic job. Even like given the fact that like we were mentioning precast, that like in real life, there was a panel where someone's like, how come you didn't give her more lines? She didn't need more lines. In context, it works. Like, you get who her character is without her having to speak so much. And she says a lot with just like her body language and her interactions.
She had one of the best scenes in the movie theater.
Yeah, 100%. Without having to say a fucking word.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like Kurt Russell was there as like the old like sort of like veteran like a stuntman like Corral.
It's
like,
credited as Randy. By the way, Kurt Russell is also the narrator.
yes.
If you guys,
I did notice that. Yes.
But, yeah.
It's funny because I was expecting it to be Tarantino himself because that's often the case, but
I almost thought it was George Clooney at first,
no.
but then I
It
realized
was obviously Kurt Russell. But yeah, I
yeah.
mean, like, there's so many other, like, Zoe, I can't remember her last name, but she was in Death Proof. Like, she's a stunt
Yeah.
woman, and she plays Kurt Russell's wife. Like, there was just so many, like, people that were just in the movie that fit right in there. Like, they weren't overused. They were just, like, they made sense. Their characters were perfect. They didn't overstay their welcome, but they made sense to the entire story, and I gotta give them, all of them, all the credit in the world.
I think the one you haven't mentioned yet was Al Pacino.
Yep, well, I was going to give that for you. Yeah.
I've got a couple characters here. If you don't mention them,
Yeah, I
I
don't
will.
know. Like, you guys mentioned most of them. I would say that from what you haven't mentioned, actually, the director of the pilot where he's
of
playing the
Lancer,
heavy-
yeah.
of Lancer. Yeah, he was very much a Hollywood director.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah, so there was Al Pacino as Martin Schwarz.
Big time producer who's trying
yeah,
to get
he was trying to get him to come to
trying to get Rick to
Italy,
beat spaghetti westerns.
and
Yeah.
eventually does. And also, I wanted to mention Luke Perry as what's his name, Wayne Maunder.
He was the white hat in the film that they
Yeah.
were making, or the
Yeah.
episode they were making. Yeah,
So, and you know, a bunch more. There were just a ton of people in this film, and they all did a good job.
yeah. They all sold.
But I think we mentioned most of the like standouts.
They all sold their roles, and it all made sense, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. So one's all around for that. I
Yep.
think.
All right, so that'll bring me to dialogue. I mean, it's a Tarantino film, so while not, I guess my thought is like, it might not be to the degree of like Reservoir Dogs style or Pulp Fiction or whatever, but it still is snappy. Like, I had a lot of chuckles, like a lot of good references, a lot of like subtle jokes like snuck in there, like
Yeah.
just like what seemingly like innocuous interactions, but elevated because like it was so organic, and the chemistry again from everybody, as we just said, the questions we just answered, like all the characters, protagonist, antagonist, and secondary, they all fit in there, and they all like had a good time with each other. Like, it seems to be like everybody had a lot of fun making this movie,
Yeah.
and every line that was spoken made sense. Nothing was out of place, and a couple of them like got me right. Like, so like here and there, like you weren't expecting it, like something like sneaks in there, and yeah, man, like I mean, he built himself on being. So the next question might be pertinent, but his style as a director, and also his like snappy like back and forth dialogue here and there.
I mean, the epic rap battles of history earned him the king of dialogue.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean,
Well, that's almost exactly what I was going to say, right? Like, Tarantino is the king of making unnatural dialogue seem natural,
mhm.
and you know this movie is no different. He's
Exactly. He's no exception.
like if he writes it, it's going to be
It will be
incredible
golden.
dialogue.
Yeah.
Despite some foibles that there may be with some of his previous scripts with using words that perhaps he shouldn't be fucking using constantly. He
But I thought
writes-
he got away from that. Like
he did.
there's nothing
Yeah,
like
no,
that
he-
in
he
this
did-
film
he
at all.
didn't- He didn't do that at all in this film.
Yeah.
But he writes some of the best dialogue in
Yep.
the business ever. Like, I was going to say recently, but it's not recently. It's ever. He writes some of the best dialogue that's ever been written.
Yeah, man.
I put him up there with, Casablanca, like, style
Yes.
dialogue. You know, he just knows how to write interactions with people.
I will say one thing, though, that this isn't as, I think, memorable as perhaps some of the
It's not
other
as quotable, I
films.
guess, is what you want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad by any means. It's still a higher level than most other films,
Mhm.
but it's more of a, and this is the last time I'm probably going to say it, compared to Jackie Brown, but Jackie Brown was a more grounded work. This is a more grounded work. So they both have more grounded dialogue than necessarily
Sure.
Samuel L. Jackson monologuing.
Right. It's not over the top, like slapping in the face with some like crazy line. Sure.
Yeah.
But it all worked amazingly.
I'm not taking. It's still fantastic.
Mm. Yep. So one's all around for that.
Mhm.
All right, E, continue on with the style.
I mean, where to begin?
Nice, yeah.
It's a Tarantino work. So I'm just going to actually say one thing about this, because if you've seen a Tarantino film, you know you're going in for great cinematography, great costuming, great music, all that.
Fonts, great fonts.
Yeah. What I liked about this is the big difference I noticed between this and previous work, and again, more towards Jackie Brown, is that he wasn't using chapters, which he
Yes.
like he does in a lot of his other films.
I was totally expecting that to be the case in this film.
Yeah.
And in fact, but he did have chapters, but he used clever transitions for his chapters to keep up this flow. So there was never a break
instead of like
chapter 2.
Yeah, exactly.
So they would be following a car as it parked, and then it would swim over to the Sharon Tate's house and start following Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. And it felt very natural with a crane shot looking like following them. And it felt a more mature work in a way of calling that of a master, but it did feel like he learned a skill from his last film.
Yeah. There are so many, like, I don't think I could think of a single shot in this movie that was poorly done in any way. Like, it's Tarantino. You're coming into Tarantino. He's a master of style.
You expect something,
like,
and
he's
got
just
it.
like, he is the stylistic genius of our time, right? Like, he just
I'd agree.
loves to splash his brush on everything that he can, like, his own type of cinematography on everything that you can touch. And, like, there's so many good shots. There's those transitions that you were mentioning that were fucking brilliant. There's, like, we were talking about a few of these before, Cass. Like, there's scenes where he does the ride along shot with the car as Cliff is, like, going in and out of traffic. Just so fucking cool. There's so many good shots in this. The behind the driver's seat shots that he gets. We could talk for an hour and a half about just the shots and the cinematography of this movie, but I won't do that. I will also mention that the music is terrific.
I was waiting for you to bring that up. Yep.
Fucking wonderful, like, period music that is, like, at the same time instantly recognizable, but songs that you don't really know, which is, like, brilliant. Like, it's just very Tarantino-esque, and, like, he does the same thing in a lot of his other movies as well. But perhaps the best that he's ever done in this one, in terms of that. The costuming is out of this world.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that. Like, that trilogy, of course, like, as you mentioned, if you're familiar with Tarantino, you know he's going to make a good film. I would say, like, the colors, like, the vibrance of it, I think stood out to me for sure.
Absolutely.
And I noticed that we as I walked out of the film, I was like, Ian and I were talking that the songs he chose fit perfectly, but they weren't, like, annoyingly obvious choices, if that makes sense. And of course, like, every the transitional shots are right. Like, and I'm glad he did not use, like, the chapter 1, like, let's say Hateful Eight, like something like that, right? He didn't need to. It just seamlessly transitioned throughout, and you, like, yes, they had like 6 months later and, like, a couple of timestamps, but that was it. And, like, he just gets gorgeous shots, and they all look amazing. And I can't say anything else. It's got to be a 1.
Yeah.
I do have one last thing I want to point out to go back to our conversation of the fact this is a Western.
Oh, yeah.
And that he has, not to say taking Western tropes and putting it in a modern setting, because it's not a modern setting, it's 1969, but
still use it, I know exactly.
So, for instance, Cliff...
He makes us feel like we're in 1969, and it is modern.
He's going up to the roof to repair a
TV antenna,
the way he puts on the toolkit, almost like a holster.
It's
without
a gun.
It's a beer in there. Mm-hmm. But it's always kind of reminding you subtly that there's a Western here.
A Western tinge to it all. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Good call.
I view this movie as a Western. Like, it's an ode to Westerns as a Western in the form of Western.
It's got like 3 like meta levels to it. Yeah, for sure. And, like, it all works. And again, it's not overbearing. It's not, like, annoying. It's just fucking seamless, like I said.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So 1's around for that. All right. And bring us home, Steve-O. Do you, in fact, recommend Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah, fuck yeah, I recommend it. It's a very good Tarantino flick. I think I was talking about that. We were talking about all the Tarantino flicks.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 9th of them. I think this is probably like 5 or 6 in his oeuvre so far.
Yep.
Like, it's certainly not. I don't think it's my favorite of his. Although, I'm sure some people could make a case for it being, like, really high up. But, like, for me, it's kind of middle of the road Tarantino. But that's really fucking good.
That's a high bar.
Like, his 9th best movie, I will watch pretty much anytime. So,
sure.
I recommend it.
I think that at least for me, because I love the subtlety of a lot of this film. Like weirdly, when considering like what subtle for Tarantino.
I get what you mean. Yeah, for sure.
For 95% of it, and I would say it's my number one and number two. But the ending did ruin it for me. So I recommend the hell out of it. But just go in knowing that you're, or at least you might be disappointed at the end. But it doesn't. The journey in this fact is much more important than the destination.
The end.
And even though Chinatown was never made in this universe.
Reality.
So, yeah.
Sure. I mean, yes, I absolutely recommend it. My new standards. I actually want to see this film again, like right now when we're done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree, Steve-O. Like it stands like maybe middle of the road, maybe like the top 30% of Tarantino films. Yeah, it was fantastic. The performances across the board were amazing. Everything we just said like backs it up, and I absolutely do recommend it. And hell yeah, go check it out if you haven't. It's fucking totally worth it. He has not lost a thing, and I think he's learned a bit, like you said, like leveled up a bit in a sense, like learned to like where to tone it down a bit, even though the ending might be a little, it could be a little polarizing, we'll say, but nevertheless, that in no way detracts from how great the film is overall.
Yeah,
yep.
I think that's it.
Anything else to add? All right, so very, very nice scores, my friends. It's a 9 across the board, so it gives it a 9, and I think that's damn well what it deserves where it stands.
Yeah, but I expect a 10 out of Tarantino.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you, but I think a 9 is still damn good. And yeah, man, it's also getting highly praised from other critics and so forth. So if you trust us and you trust them, I don't know what to tell you. What's Behind Hollywood? Damn solid. I think it might become like, in like 10 years, it might become kind of a classic. Or it will be like remembered for his best, one of it, in the top tier of his best films.
All right.
Except for the ending.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
For you.
But yeah, I think that'll do it. So I think our stars are fading ourselves, and I've been Scott Thurlow, and I've been here with Jonathan Ian Manzer. All right. And Stephen Amosi.
I don't like names like Pumpkin Puss.
Of course you don't. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Pumpkin Puss.
Good night.
Editing and engineering by Stephen Amosi. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?